Well, Zach, it has been an interesting and challenging week, I think, for both of us.
It's been a busy week, Gabe, and I have been busier than a bee in a flower shop, and I just love those sayings. I hope someone laughed at that. But
Uh,
Gabe, it's been a busy week, and I know how much you love putting content out, and that includes me too. But I think it's still valuable to have a bit of a podcast discussion, even though we've got a little bit more of a condensed timeline today.
yes, we are doing a condensed timeline today because, as Zach said, it has been a busy week for both of us. But before we jump into our condensed topic today, which I still think is going to be a really fun one, I wanted to. I was thinking about this actually right before we jumped on the podcast, Zach, and it's something that my sister-in-law says all the time, and I love it. And she talks about, a very common saying, like you're busy as a bee in a flower shop situation, is we're all in the same boat, right? And I think that's a dangerous way to look at things. And the reason I think that is, again, because of a quote that my sister-in-law says all the time, which is, we aren't all in the same boat, but we are sailing on the same ocean and trying to stay afloat. And why I love that is because it really represents the difficult, or I should say different, situations that we're all in as we go through our life. Like my week this week has been stressful because of just work in general, but also my kids are busy. I'm schlepping my kids all over the place for baseball and other activities. And so all of that stress just kind of bleeds into the rest of my life. And you and I are, you've got big stuff going on in your life too, but it's very different from the things that I've got going on, but they're still big in each one of our lives.
The biggest thing in my life right now, Gabe, is whether or not I want white seats in a new car. And this to me was like, well, this is a big problem. This is going to be a vehicle I drive for the next until I buy my Rivian. But you're right. We're in the same boat, and now I kind of want to buy a boat. Can you? I think every boat has white seats, but
I don't know that I've ever seen a boat with non-white or at least
I
light
was gonna say
seats.
everything I'm thinking
Yeah,
of is like the tan. And
yeah,
anyway, nobody's buying boats on this podcast today. It's
no.
almost fall. Boating season's done. But Gabe, I like
I'm
that
in
example.
California, so boating season can be all year. But it's all about the biggest thing that's happening in your life right now. It may seem small to somebody else, and vice versa. You trying to choose whether you're going to get white seats in a car may seem small to somebody else, but that's a big thing in your life. Me dealing with running my kids around to various things, that may seem very small to somebody who's dealing with something very serious, really serious family health issue or something like that. And you know what? That's very true. But it's those things are all big to us in the moment. And I think we could all give ourselves and maybe each other a little bit more grace when it comes to these things, to remember that just because something doesn't seem like a big deal to you doesn't mean that it's not a big deal to somebody else.
Gabe, this is gonna be a quick episode, but I like
No,
where
that was
this
like deep
conversation
though,
is
right?
going so far. Is that the end? Is that all we had to talk about today?
No. We still have to do something at least, somewhat marketing and nerdy and things like that. So let's get into the actual topic today. So what we wanted to discuss today is a bit of an extension of the pricing psychology episodes that we did a few weeks ago. We ended up doing two of those episodes, Zach, because frankly there was just so much to talk about. There was a tremendous amount to unpack there, and we actually have even more stuff to unpack
Oh yeah,
because
we're not done.
no, we're never done, especially on this topic. I think there's so much to discuss and frankly, new research that comes out and things like that. But the reason we wanted to talk this topic specifically is after we did those episodes and after I read through the handbook on the psychology of pricing, which is still sitting on my desk over here, I actually reached out to the author who wrote that book to ask him some very specific questions about recurring revenue businesses. So that would be like broadband service providers, gyms, insurance, these types of things. And was there any research that showed what discount was appropriate or what discount was best to maximize customer lifetime value? And I want to get into that today. But Zach, anything you'd add to that before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, nerdy details of this?
Oh please, you know I love getting into the details, and you just mentioned customer lifetime value. So let's dive in, Gabe. Let's talk a little bit about discounting and what you've got planned for us today.
Yeah. So the real crux of this question was around, as I think about the broadband industry broadly, what we see oftentimes, Zach, and I know you've seen these situations personally as well, the large national broadband service providers tend to offer very aggressive discounts for a period of time, 12 months, 24 months, something like that, and then increase. I think you had actually some really specific examples of large providers in your area that have tried to win you back with those large discounts, correct?
Yeah, and we're not talking large discounts. We're talking all the way down to, I believe it was like $10 at one point, Gabe. And this was when a fiber provider came in, overbuilt this big national provider who had copper. Nobody wants that. and and of course I moved to fiber. I want these podcast episodes to be uploaded in 5 minutes and not the 3 hours it took previously. And so the old provider wants me back, and the discounts they've used, I have seen. So like, again, we've gone down to $9.99 right now. They're at I think like $29.99 maybe, so they're in this $29.99 range. I've seen $39.99 for speeds of half of what I'm getting. And again, that's the downstream speed. The upload speed is what really killed us in the last podcast. But I don't want to go back to this less than ideal is the term I will use, service.
That was about as delicate as you could have said it.
Was that too long of a pause?
No. I could see you trying to figure out a really nice way to say that.
Yeah, but I've got this very nice fiber service to my house right now. Like I said, these podcast episodes take 5 minutes to upload as opposed to the 3 hours. I told you, Gabe, we would do an episode, and then I would go back to my office around 7, 8 o'clock at night and click the save button. That's how long it took to upload. So I don't want to do that. I work from home. I want the best connection I have. So again, these discounts they're offering, they're pretty steep, but factoring in the subscriber experience.
But they're temporary, right?
Exactly. And I don't want to be paying, I don't know what the full price is off the top of my head, but it's not $10 for life.
No, it is definitely not $10 for life. And it's what I've seen generally is that at the lower end service tiers, those discounts are even more aggressive, meaning the price increase is even more once that promotional period is gone. So as an example, Zach, you mentioned $10. I wouldn't be surprised if the regular price for that was in the $30 or $40 a month range.
Gabe, if you recall, I looked at a new apartment on the other side of town with this legacy provider. And do you remember, I told you like the internet was like $70 a month.
There
right?
you go.
For 100 megabits per second, I think it was, and 5 upload. But I think it was around $70 for their typical service.
Yeah. So to this point, if you decided to go with that really cheap option and your price went from $10 a month to $70 a month, what do you think is going to happen? What trigger is going to happen in your life?
The first thing I would do is I would grab my phone and look for an alternative.
There you go, right? And that's exactly the point that I was curious about, because anecdotally, I sort of felt that same way, right? If people have this massive price increase, they're going to start actively searching for in this case, new service provider. I think this can be true of, again, any recurring revenue business. If you go to a gym and they give you a discount, and it increases after 6 months, you're going to do the same thing.
You're forgetting a conversation we had a month ago, and that was I was looking at a new car as we began this podcast with, and one of the quotes I got was from my existing insurance company was like, what was it? I can't remember.
That's right. I forgot about it.
Was it like 3 times or something? I can't remember the exact.
I think it was like 2.5 times what I remember you sharing the numbers with me. I want to say it was like 2.5 times what you were paying currently. And what did it do?
The first thing I did was I went to a different insurance company and found a lesser quote. And of course, I took that back to my current insurance company. I was like, hey, like, how much do you value me as a customer? Because I have this in front of me, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm still shopping around, but it's the same thing. I think consumers, when you have such steep discounts and then you increase the price, that's not going to make them a happy customer.
No, it's going to result in them looking. But the reason I wanted to find out if there was any research about this is my feeling was that there probably was a sweet spot. There probably was a point where you can offer some nominal discount to incent people to get in the door, but not so much that it's going to upset them once that, in some cases, very aggressive discount rolls off. And it turns out that there actually is research around this. And the author of that book actually sent me the very detailed research paper, which I believe I've shared with you. It is super nerdy and feels like you're back in in, like a college economics class or something like that.
It's exactly where I
But
want to be.
I did enjoy college economics.
I,
Actually.
I,
Those were fun classes.
macro microeconomics. I
Yeah,
love
those
those
are cool.
classes.
I like those too. But it was really interesting, and the outcome of this research. And if anybody wants to see the research or whatever, just hit Zach or I up on LinkedIn, or wherever you can find us. We're happy to share. I don't think this is publicly available information, and I would recommend reading through it. But the research basically said, if you want to increase profitability and enhance your customer lifetime value, you should offer initial price discounts in the range of 15 to 20% for services to new customers. I'll just leave that there for a sec. So if you want to increase customer lifetime value, you want to be in that range of 15 to 20%. That is going to incent people enough to make a purchase, but not irritate them so much when that price goes up that they're going to look for other alternatives.
I think that's the sweet spot, 15 to 20%.
And Zach, you had asked me, we were talking about low discounts and kind of what that range was. We were talking about that earlier. And the research also demonstrated that if you offer too low of discounts, too low being less than or equal to 5%, you're literally just giving away free money, because those people would have purchased anyway, even without a discount. And they're not perceiving you're not going to increase demand enough to offset that discount that you're offering.
Yeah, I feel like the sub 5%, it's nice to have, but if you're saving me $1 or $2, why are we doing that?
Correct. To what end, right? And on the flip side of that are the high discounts. So discounts over 35%. If you're trying to optimize around retention, you do not want to be offering discounts around 35%, because what's going to happen is exactly what Zach and I were talking about earlier. That price jump happens, and all of a sudden it's a trigger event for somebody going out and looking for a new service provider, whether that be broadband, I feel like whether that be any other recurring revenue.
Above that 35%, you're not acquiring your best customers. As it relates back to customer lifetime value, who is your best customer? And is it someone who needs or wants a 50, 60, 70% discount? Where are they going to be when you no longer have said discount? Everything we just talked about right there.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the promo shoppers. They're the people who are going to bounce around between different providers looking for the best discount. And so you're basically self-selecting people who are interested in that type of relationship with you. And especially in a business like broadband, where the cost of acquisition is very high, there's cost usually to send a technician out to do an install, and there's equipment involved and all of these things. The cost is extremely high. And so if you have a customer that only sticks around for 18, 24 months, in a best case scenario, maybe even after that discount jumps up a little bit, they take a few more months to go find another alternative, you're still not going to be paying back the initial investment that you made to acquire that customer in the first place.
I'd say this is especially true in areas, I'm thinking of the retention, the churn. How easy is it to find an alternative? Does one exist, right? I mentioned insurance, we talked broadband, of course, but I feel like those are both fairly easy, as much as I don't want to switch away from. Gabe, I know we're both Gen Z on this call here, but I want to flip it back to you. I just told you how easy it would be for me to leave under some, specific circumstances here as well. If you were offered a discount at even the $9 and then increased to 50, 70 or so, would you be able to?
After that initial period, heck yeah. Like, there's no way I'm dealing with a 300 or 400% price increase after an initial period. I do believe these things are kind of related, and I don't have any data to support this, so this is just me talking here. But if you look at, again, going back to the large national service providers, a lot of their NPS scores, their net promoter scores, are really, really bad. And
I don't think I've seen a good one.
Yeah, they're really bad. I mean, the broadband industry generally has customers or companies with really poor NPS scores. And I do believe a huge portion of that is because of the discounting strategy that they have, which is, even if people don't leave, they're not happy with the situation because they're upset that you've increased the price so much. And again, it's about finding balance, right? Like in so many things in life, it's just about balance. You want to make sure that you're balancing your new customer acquisition efforts with customer lifetime value. This is also why I believe the large providers offer such aggressive discounts. Because, Zach, I know you're not quite as nerdy as me about this, but I go and I listen to most of the earnings calls for these large companies. Well, what do you think the first question they get asked about is on those calls?
Let's hear it.
It's how many customers did you acquire? What happened with your customer base from last quarter to this quarter? How many new customers did you acquire? Well, if your investors only care about that thing, right? Increasing your subscriber count, then what are you going to do? You're going to optimize your pricing strategy to acquire new customers. And in that case, it's offering a massive discount, right? In order to get people in the door. But you're not optimizing your business for profitability long term. You're just optimizing for that single metric that everybody is focused on.
I'm reminded on another example. This one isn't so negative because it's Apple. Apple Music. I am on the Apple Music student plan. Don't repeat that. Don't share that outside of the podcast. But
we won't
they
tell
increased.
Apple, I promise.
Oh no, I'm gonna lose my. I don't know what the discount is, but they increased prices from like $4.99 to $5.99. Right? That's something I didn't even think twice about. Right? Like my intro rate was gone. I'm now paying $5.99. It might be $6.99. It was increased by $1. And I feel like that goes back to our discounting conversation here. Is that seemed like an appropriate amount, not enough to like make me immediately look to Spotify or to. Mm-hmm. I have one friend on YouTube Music, and I can't. I really hope they listen to this episode because I don't know anyone besides this person that uses YouTube Music. So I don't know anything about it, but who uses it? But it wasn't enough to make me look for the alternative. Apple, great experience. Well, I feel like they make it difficult to switch now that I think about it because all my music's in there.
But and therefore they have pricing power.
I was going to say there's some other factors at play, but it was such a small intro discount that I had lost that it wasn't something I thought twice about.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that the percentage increase there is actually fairly high, but the aggregate dollar amount is so low that it doesn't seem as high.
And that's what I think. It's the services business for Apple is. If this was an iPhone, it would be a much different dollar amount, right? But since it's something that's only valued at, I mean, we're talking again less than $10 here, less than $5, I guess, when we started. But I think, fine print there's a dollar amount. But again, think of these the recurring revenue in broadband, or if you want to use the iPhone as an example, what's a 10% discount on an iPhone, or things like that. I think there's two factors at play there.
Yep. Well, I know we kind of came in hot today, Zach, and really hammering on this particular topic, but I think it's so important, and it's a really important thing for people to think about is, again, that balancing acquisition versus customer lifetime value. And we work with a lot of broadband service providers who don't offer initial discounts because they want to be different. They don't want to seem like the big national providers that have been doing this forever and raising rates and increasing rates. And I get that. I really understand why you want to be different and how you want to differentiate in your market. But if you're not offering some sort of discount, at least a nominal discount to get people in the door, you're probably leaving revenue on the table because you're not going to get the acquisition rates. And then on the flip side of that, if you're being way too aggressive with your discounts, you're leaving money on the table because you've got people that are just going to come on for the discount period and then they're going to bounce as soon as that discount period is over. So find the balance, do some testing, all of the wonderful things that Zach and I talk about all the time. I think there's a great opportunity to, try and figure out what is the sweet spot there of discount versus too aggressive discount to make sure that you're maximizing your customer lifetime value.
Agree. I mean, let's be honest. Everyone likes a discount, but what is the best discount for your business?
Yep, absolutely. What's the best discount for your business? And again, if you want to see any of the research, hit Zach or I up. We're more than happy to share. Again, it's it's public information. I would recommend, as nerdy as it is, reading through the scholarly write up about it. It's a few pages, but it's definitely time well spent.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gabe. And thank you for everyone for tuning in to Buffering. If you enjoyed this short episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for even more insights, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn and to visit our podcast blog at bit.ly/bufferingpodcast.